Mike Sanders been helping me a lot. That's been my roommate in the hotel as well. But since I got here, me and him been really like brothers, like twin brothers. Like we come to the facility at the same time, and he's just been helping me a lot during this process. So that's how I picked up the playbook so fast.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. We're ready to get this one underway. Without further ado, let's go. Getting closer to the college football season. That means you're getting more excited about toe to leather as Michigan gets ready for this upcoming campaign, which as things sit right now, looks to be very promising, as everybody knows. And you might think, well, what are you going to talk about today? You got a lot of things to choose from when it comes down to the Maize and Blue and the football team. And I would agree with you. We do have a lot of things to talk about. We've got an update on Michigan's recruiting class from this year. If you missed that, you don't have to worry because I got you covered with that. I also all morning sat around, and you can do it here for a couple minutes yourself, and you think about who are the X factors for this Michigan football team for 2023. Who are the X factors? I came up with 5 of them, and I will get to that coming up straight ahead. But we will start with the big news for the Wolverines, and that is that they have picked up a new commitment, and I'll tell you all about that. Now, if you want to know about recruiting, you'll want to know the latest about football and basketball recruiting, accurate information, transfer portal news, well, then you should join the Maize and Blue Review today. In addition, you get the wonderful community of the Den, which the people I noticed that are very reasonable and great discussion about the latest in Michigan football. But right now, I do believe is the very best time to join the Maize and Blue. Like if you were on the fence for some reason and you thought, but I want to really know everything that's going on in practice. Well, then, now's the time because we will have practice reports coming your way as Michigan gets ready to, I think, scrimmage tomorrow. So give us a shot. That's what we asked for. We think that you'll like what you see when it comes down. Go to michigan.rivals.com. All right, recruiting. Michigan, they lost out on a few corners over the last month, as you know, but then they went out and got the kid from Indiana, Josiah Edmond, flipped him from Purdue. And then the very latest Wolverine is named Jeremiah Lowe. He is a corner prospect out of Lexington, Kentucky, 5'11", 170. And there he is, pictured on the screen. And he becomes the latest verbal commitment for the Maize and Blue. And they are already, as they sit here on the 11th of August, Michigan is up to 28. Count them, 28 commitments. It just keeps happening. You think, how many can they take? I just keep taking them. 28 commits. And I checked today on Rivals. Michigan is still top 5, number 5 on Rivals 24 team ranking. And that is with the latest addition in Jeremiah Lowe. He joins Jeremiah Beasley, a linebacker out of Belleville on the defensive side, as Jeremiah's, who are part of this 24 Michigan football class. It's a pretty good one when you take a look at it. Now, when we look through and think about what's going on with Michigan recruiting, things are going pretty well. And one thing we'd like to do is take your feedback. You've got a question, you got a point, you got an answer, you got a question. We, in real time, put those queries up on the board and answer them. Michael said, missed you yesterday. Michael, I missed you as well. Vince's countdown to kickoff is always great. to have here. I was going to see, there it is. The Vince countdown to Michigan kickoff versus East Carolina, with today being the 11th. I might be able to do the math myself, but I'm happy that Vince has jumped in. Always good to see him. He has been counting them down since day 136, and now just 22 days away from kickoff at the Big House. Thank you very much, Vince. I'm pretty fired up about that. That's just over 3 weeks. We're ready to go. Fantastic Friday for everybody. Glenn, number one on Facebook, and number one in our hearts as well. Richard, after watching the bussing boys with our offensive linemen, I'm even more excited for the Natty. I watched bussing with the boys with the running backs. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I watched a couple minutes. Taylor Lewan, these guys, they had their mics. Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, they were talking tattoos. Donovan Edwards, not a tattoo guy. Blake Corum and Taylor Lewan, definitely tattoo guys. But, that was like 2 or 3 minutes in, and then, I didn't get to anything else on them. But, Lewan being an offensive lineman, I could see getting into a little, bringing in his guys, offensive linemen. So that would make sense, to me. Okay. Vince is asking for a favor. Let's see what his favor is. Can you give a shout out to my girlfriend's son, Owen? I'm trying to convince him to be part of the Maize and Blue family, but I need some help. Well, the big O, what's up? What's up, Owen? The O-Wiz. Oh, let's go. Let's go, Owen. You could pick any team. I don't know how old you are, Owen, but, you pick a side, you pick a team, and then that team becomes, part of your family for the rest of your life. And, you can look all around the country and everything else. Michigan, I'm able to remove myself and be impartial from the situation. Even though I am sitting here on the Maize and Blue and everything else, Michigan has everything that you're looking for if you're in pursuit. If you're a youngster and you're looking around for a college team to root for, certainly football and basketball, all sports. And then, Owen, I don't know what kind of student you are or what your future aspiration, well, all the things that, you want to be and everything else, but people that, the very high achievers that want to do everything in life, they start thinking about going to Michigan right now, however old you are. And if you are able to, gain admittance, it's like, it is a ticket to the world. Not saying that you can't go, and have all those things. If you don't get into Michigan, many try and are not able to, and, they still work out, things still work out, but why not shoot for the stars? Why not put your feet on the ground like Casey Kasem used to say? Keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. Good luck to you, Owen, and welcome in to the Maize and Blue. And Richard says, just go for the best helmets in college football. And that is impartial. You take 100 college football fans and, 95 of them are going to say Michigan, they definitely have the best helmets. I mean, who else are you going to say? I don't know. Who else are you going to say? Florida State or something? I liked Florida State's helmets. So you're going to USC. Yeah, maybe you look for some tradition out there. Texas, Ohio State. They're up there. But, for Michigan, no. They're number one. They're number one being impartial for the helmets, for the uniforms overall. The stadium is number one. There's no argument over there. The game day atmosphere, number one. Band, number one. What else? What else can we do? That's it. You've got it. And right now, when you look at the football team, this is a great time to jump in. You're not getting in on the ground floor. You're like getting in and you're going right up to the penthouse because this is going to be a great year and it'll be very memorable. And as you become a Michigan fan this year, the chances that it could be like a year you'll remember forever is is there for you. So good luck with that. All right, so I sat around and talked about X factors, and that's what we're going to get to straight away here. I do want to tell you, and I know a lot of you were thinking about getting out and getting it over to Northville yesterday, but Rito's hot dog stand, they had the great time in Northville. Now they moved their business to South Lyon, and they'll be there tomorrow, August the 12th. South Lyon's Farmers Market from 10 to 2. Go out and see the guys and tell them Good Afternoon Michigan Football sent you, and say Fithian says, give me a Detroiter. And you get a Detroiter, I guarantee you'll come away saying that is the greatest hot dog that you've ever had. Reno's Hot Dog Stand and Catering. See you out there. There you go. Now, I told you to think about it, and I want you to think about it. The X factors for this Michigan football team. What is an X factor? You think, I don't know, you see it a lot, but you say, what is an X factor? An X factor is a noteworthy special talent or quality. There are plenty of luxury cars around, but the S type has that special X factor. We could say for Owen, like there's a lot of football stadiums, there's a lot of football helmets, there's a lot of football programs, but Michigan's got a lot of X factors, from their uniforms to their stadiums to the teams to the academics. Lots of X factors for the Wolverines. Now, in addition, the second part of what X factor means, it's a variable in a given situation that could have the most significant impact on the outcome. Now, I think for this one, I think a combination of 1 and 2, a noteworthy or special talent or quality, a variable in a given situation that could have the most significant impact on the outcome. Michigan has definitely, they've got a lot of X factors, and I put it down to 5 of those X factors. And without further ado, and we'll get to some of your feedback coming up, let's get to those X factors. At number 5, I am going to go to Roman Wilson as X factor number 5 for the Michigan football team this year. Now, you hear people talk about, you'll hear certainly local people, but national people, anybody that's involved with college football, they're going to weigh in on Michigan, and they're going to say, oh, the Michigan offense, the Joe Moore Award, 2-time winners. They're going to talk about J.J. McCarthy, the great running backs. And then they'll say, the wide receivers, that's a question. And I think that's fair. I think it's fair. If you follow this particular show, you know that I think Roman Wilson can elevate this group to being one that could be champions. I think he's got that kind of talent. It's all systems go on offense. Roman, all football players need to stay healthy. Roman Wilson has been banged up over the last couple of years and has missed some time. But when he's healthy, and he is right now, let's say it, he's Roman ready. He is a deep threat. He is a weapon in the passing game. He can do all of the things. I mean, like, is there a faster player in college football? And he's coming off a college football semifinal where he should have had a hat trick. He had that one taken off the board inexplicably by the referees in the game against TCU, but he had 2 other touchdowns in that game. He is an X factor that could take Michigan and elevate them to, and I think that Michigan is going to have not just a top 5 offense. They ended up being number 6 last year overall in points per game. I think Michigan will have the number one offense in all of college football. So, yeah, they're going to run it a lot. They've got two great backs in Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. We all know that. McCarthy is going to throw the ball. He is going to try to get the ball down the field with some bombs. And 14 is going to be the recipient of those long airmail shots that JJ takes. You will see some of those. I think that we will see him in what? Where are we at, Vince? 22 days? I think we'll see Roman Wilson trying to take the top off of the Pirates defense. So X factor number 5, Roman Wilson for Michigan. Moving on, X factor number 4, AJ Barner. He was a transfer, one of the 10 from Indiana. I just saw Sharon Moore yesterday talking about AJ Barner, and he said he's huge and he does everything right. Now, we're just talking about Michigan's offense here, and you say the tight end position, Colston Loveland. Man, this guy could be the best tight end in all the country. And we know what's going on down in Georgia with Brock Bowers. So, okay, he could be the second best tight end in the country behind Brock Bowers. Who's going to be that second guy? And in Barner, one of the, I think, I don't know if it's not talked about as much as it should be if we were saying, Michigan the last 2 years, the offensive line, look at what the defense did with the edge players. And look at, from Cade to JJ, and, you kind of keep going down the list. When you think about what Luke Schoonmaker was able to do and step up with Eric All, who in effect, was basically out for the year last year, and Schoonmaker slid in there and he was able to do both things. He's able to put his hand in the ground and block. And Barner can definitely do that. He's a monster in the run game. Now, his statistics, when you look at him in Indiana in terms of receiving, they're not very gaudy or anything. But when you hear the coaches and players talking about the team and they just get to Barner, they say, yeah, he can do everything. And he does everything right. And it's not going to limit Michigan if Barner's out there thinking, okay, they're just going to run the ball. He can go out and catch the ball. He feels a little bit like, hey, he's going to take that Schoonmaker role. I think he's a big X factor. Now, Michigan's got 5 or 6, from Hipner to Bredesen to Klein, and obviously Loveland they have there, and there's others. There are 2 freshmen coming in. They've got a lot of depth there, and maybe all of them together, you say they've got, it's a can't miss. But the more and more that I talk about it and we talk about it, Jim Scarcelli, who joins us on Wednesday, the former Wolverine, we watched a lot of cut-ups and breakdowns of the spring game. One of my takeaways from Scar's film study when it came to spring was the tight end position. And Scar kept saying, look, all these guys look like about 6'5", 255, and you can't tell. Maybe they'll run some 11, but, 12, 13, 3 tight ends out there, 13 personnel. You'll see some of that. But these guys are interchangeable. Now, Loveland is more of that pass catcher. But all of the other guys, from Barner to Bredesen to Klein, and you keep going down the list to Hipner, those guys, a lot of those, you put different uniforms on and you wouldn't know. But I think Barner has distinguished himself when you just hear his teammates and you hear the coaches. And they're not singling him out like, oh, he's going to be the great. They just keep talking about him. His name just keeps coming up. Harbaugh said, as one of the, how many ever said, he thinks everybody's going to get drafted or 20 guys are going to get drafted. He mentioned Barner. Now, yeah, I think that Harbaugh is bullish on his team and that, you're always thinking about motivating them, but there's also some truth when you say you think that there's going to be that many guys drafted. And when you talk about Barner and then you hear what Sharon Moore had to say about him, they like him. I like what he is bringing to this offense, and that is why I put A.J. Barner as X Factor number 89 and X Factor number 4 for the Michigan football team. X Factor number 3, I am going to have Khalil Mullings, Michigan running back. Now, and rightfully so, if we're sitting around talking about Michigan, I could spend an hour talking about just Blake Corum. I love Blake Corum. I love when he's like, it happens. It happens, it happens frequently, which is a sign of a good football program. But Corum is a Michigan man. When you say Michigan man, other people are like, oh, Michigan. Blake Corum is a Michigan man. When you hear him talk about the team and what they're trying to get done, you listen to him talk, you're like, oh, this guy, he is the poster child for being a Michigan man. And he's great. He's a great football player. And I can't wait to see him in 22 days. Number 2 in 22 days. It's the biggest thing that I am looking forward to for the upcoming season. Yeah, I like the start of the season. I like to see him run out. I like all of it. But if you're asking me what's the thing I'm looking forward to most in 22 days, I'm looking forward to seeing Blake Corum carry the football. Now, I don't know if there's anyone that is higher on the one-arm bandit than me, and that's Donovan Edwards. Although recently I have seen others across the country start talking about, oh, Donovan Edwards. He's not just, making up the best backfield in college football. Donovan Edwards is a little bit like, you might start thinking about him as being a first-round draft pick. That, he could be we talk about great NFL player. He could be this 1-2 punch. Michigan has had a lot of great backfields in their history. Now, Wheatley. I was just watching the 93 Rose Bowl this week. There goes Wheatley, taking off down the field. Biaka Batuka was in that backfield. There's plenty from the 70s. I mean, you can just go over and over these backfields. This, as with 2 guys, could be the best ever. I think that these guys are going to go 1-2 in the NFL draft, and it wouldn't surprise me if Edwards is the one that goes in the first round. So all of that, talking about the running game, it is special. It should be talked about. But Mullings, if you think about Jim Harbaugh, we've seen it was the bench that they had as a defensive tackle. They had him running the football. They had it was Hill's name, Panda, the big Panda back there as a short yardage guy. Coaches, fans. No, I think that Blake Corum can get skinny, and if you need a yard, he can pick you up that yard. And we saw it last year when he scored 5 touchdowns in the third game. And I know, it was against UConn. My point is that you need a yard, you need a 4th and 1, and Haskins was so good on it. Last year was a big focus, like, who's going to be the big back? Who's going to be the goal line back? Well, Corum was okay. In fact, he was better than okay. He was really good at being able to get you a yard. And if you go back and you watch the film from last year, I thought there was a concerted effort by Michigan to give number 7 the ball in between the tackles. And there was an effort by Donovan Edwards to show that he could stick his nose in there and he could get dirty and he could get you that half yard, 2 yards if you really needed it. He could get you those tough yards down on the goal line. Go back and watch the carries, and definitely out on the perimeter and letting him fly down the field and all that. I mean, he's an exceptional talent. That's why I think he's going to be a first-round pick. Speed, all of it. He's the complete package. But Mullings, let's go back to last year's Michigan team that went undefeated. Against Ohio State, who was in there on the big 3rd and 1 in the second half? Mullings. Now, I didn't think he was going to throw a jump pass. Who was in there in the Big Ten championship game on the goal line. Who was in there in the college football playoff? Yeah, he fumbled. It was Mullings. So as much as we talk about the two guys, the two exceptional backs, Mullings is a big X factor. Being able to pick up that tough yardage, he's going to be out there. He is going to be utilized, and he doesn't get talked about an awful lot. And again, I just stated all those reasons why, but I will go, and I think as an X factor, I'm going to put Khalil Mullings. When I hear people talk about Michigan's running game, and I understand it, like who's the third back, and people don't mention Stokes as much because, he got in the doghouse a little bit last year. They mentioned Benjamin Hall, who, looked really good in the spring game. And all of us are excited about Cole Cabana and what he brings to the table. So if we were just counting every Michigan football fan, when they talked about Michigan football and they talked specifically about the running game, most of the air would be taken up talking about Corum and Edwards. And then the next thing would be talking about, well, who's the third guy? And the three guys that would get mentioned are Stokes, he wouldn't get mentioned as most, Hall and Cabana are going to get talked about. And then Mullings is like he's an afterthought. And yet in the biggest games for Michigan, Mullings was getting the ball in the big situations, in the horseshoe in the second half, in the Big Ten championship game, in Arizona in the college football playoff. Let's not sleep on a very important player and somebody that is a big X factor for the Maize and Blue. X factor number 3, Khalil Mullings. If you are just joining us, let's go back and recap. X factor number 5, Roman Wilson. X factor number 4, AJ Barner. X factor number 3, Khalil Mullings. Let's go to the other side of the ball, and X factor number 2, Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant, I looked last year, the roster had Kenneth Grant at 356. This year's roster has him at 339. I'm comfortable saying that he's going to play anywhere between 339 and 356. He's a giant. And Harbaugh last year, it was a real big surprise that Mason Graham won a starting job on the defensive line for Michigan coming out of fall ball. It's almost unheard of, but Graham deserved it, and he lived up to that hype, the fall camp hype of being named a starter. But if you recall, in August or early September, when Harbaugh was talking about the two freshmen, Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, he said the two of them are, quote, gifts from the football gods. And when you think about the departure of Mozzie Smith to the Dallas Cowboys and what Michigan could use on that defensive line, we all like Chris Jenkins, and we talk about Graham because we should. And I'm big on Rashawn Benny. I'm like Cam Good made a couple nice plays in the spring game, which makes you feel like positive about the contributions from number 99. But what about X factor number 2? If Kenneth Grant, and speaking of the spring game, which I do an awful lot with a grain of salt, for everyone, I don't like, you could say, well, he sure does put an awful lot of stock in the spring game. Guilty. I'm guilty of that. Grant can be a special football player. Grant can be a run stuffer. Grant can throw guys around. And when you start talking about the defense and you make plays and all this, it's going to start at the point of attack. You need a guy like Grant. And if Grant can take the step forward, he played a little bit last year, but he's going to have a bigger role this year. How many snaps can he play? The thing about, and I'll go back to spring just for a second. one of the stories of the spring was not just Kenneth Grant looking good when you just sat back and watched if you were at the game, or he jumped off a field, jumped off the screen if you were watching it, for the way he played. It was noteworthy. But the other thing that was noteworthy is that he played every snap, I believe. And he was the first pick, and he was down there, and I think that he wanted to prove, because when you see a guy like, I think about, 380, 370, 360, you start thinking about these gigantic refrigerators of these huge humans, like defensive tackles, football players. And you're like, wow, look at these guys. And Grant wanted to prove that, he was more than just was it Godzilla for, was it Jordan Davis, right? For the Bulldogs, first round pick for the Eagles, fabulous player. Hell, for a time there, I was ready to vote him as a Heisman finalist if I had a vote. That's what kind of player he was for that great defense. But the criticism of Davis, at 380 or whatever he was, is that he was just a two-down. He's just a two-down player. You can't have him in there on passing downs. He gets gassed. That sure, he can block the sun out and everything else, but you can't have him out there on passing downs. He's great against the run. Grant is, we're going to see how much rotation and everything else, and always have him out there, but that was the point. I think I talked about it too long. But Grant, that's why he's number 2 on my list as an X factor. If he is the kind of player that I think he could be, then yeah, this could be like, I keep saying this and you keep thinking it, and I think you keep saying it too. Like, this could be a real special season. Having Kenneth Grant emerge on the defensive line as a big time contributor, demanding a double team, having teams say, we just cannot run on Michigan. They just got a brick wall. We can't run at this guy. One of the gifts from the football gods. X factor number 2, Kenneth Grant. Okay, X factor number 1. If you want to say I cheated a little bit, again, I'm going to say I am guilty. But X factor number 1 to me is going to be this number 1 jersey for Michigan. If you ask me, hey, Dennis, who's your favorite Michigan football player of all time? There's no hesitation. Of all of the great players that walk through down that tunnel to play at Michigan, one stands out to me as the greatest ever. My favorite, who was everything about Michigan football as a 8 or 9-year-old when I saw him play, and that was Anthony Carter. And everyone around my age that saw him says the same thing. And all the guys that play with him say, yeah, Anthony Carter, he was special. It's something, the tearaway jerseys, he had a panache, he had it all. Game-breaking ability. We all love the human torpedo and Anthony Carter, the greatest Michigan football player of all time. Well, he set a standard for that number 1 jersey. And players from Greg McMurtry, you just keep David Terrell, Braylon Edwards, you go down the list. You had to earn. You earn the number 1 jersey at Michigan. Currently, there are 2 players, and they both play the same position, and they both wear the number 1. Unless there has been a rule change in college football, you can't have players with the same jersey on the same side of the ball. So Jaden McBurrows, who is a junior and has that number 1 jersey, and Amarian Walker, who came over as a wide receiver and now is playing cornerback. I think that Amarian Walker is going to have to change his jersey unless there's some kind of like free-for-all competition with Jim Harbaugh and company, and maybe Dave Clinkscale got involved here and said, look, guys, I know you guys are fighting for that top cornerback 2 spot opposite of Will Johnson, but there can only be one. Number 1, who plays opposite of number 2. And you guys are both wearing one. Now, maybe they can get away with not having them both on the field. That to say, I think that they're going to have to do something in 22 days. Is it a big deal? Yeah, it is a big deal. It's going to be a big deal to see which guy emerges. And that's why I have it as X factor number 1. Cornerback 2 is the number 1 position that is a question mark for Michigan this year. And they've got a lot of guys. You heard Josh Wallace at the beginning of the show.
Mike Sanders been helping me a lot. That's been my roommate in the hotel as well.
That's Josh Wallace right there. Thanks to the In the Trenches podcast for that audio. And maybe it'll be number 12, who has 34 starts and was a 3-time captain at UMass. Maybe it'll be Miles Pollard, my dark horse. Maybe it'll be one of the 2 freshmen, Jair Hill or Cam Calhoun. And maybe we will, I think that whether you're saying it's a prediction or not, I think that we will see both I think we'll see 2 different starters from game 1 to game 2. And, and we'll see them all play. The competition is going to spill into the season. I'm not going to sit around 5 minutes. You understand that. I already did that with Grant. But this is where we're at with these guys. And so for me, that is, let me position myself there it is. That is the number 1 X factor to me. Cornerback 2. And who ultimately wears that number 1 jersey. Now, I think if I was sitting in here and I had Jesse Minter, Steve Clinkscale, the 2 co-defensive coordinators, along with Harbaugh, I'd have those 3 guys and me sitting in, and I'm there by proxy for you guys. So it's us 4 sitting in there, and I said, guys, just tell me, who do you really want that corner to be? I think Klink would say, we want him to compete, and we want the best guy to win it. I'd say, Coach, I get that. But who do you want to win it? And I think Minter would say, we just want the best guy. And I'd say, I know that. Who's got the most talent? And I think that Harbaugh would say that Amarian Walker is the best athlete and the most talented. And so do you want the most talented, the best athlete to win that job? I'm going to say yes. Now, look, there are plenty of players down through the years that have gone on to be All-Americans and have gone on to great NFL careers. Hell, Tom Brady, 6th round pick, 199. Is not the most talented football player ever. A lot more talented quarterbacks, a lot more arm talent, a lot more everything, and Tom Brady ended up being the greatest. So, that gets you something. That might be a good comeback for Jim Harbaugh. Hey, we want the best. We want the Tom Brady out of this cornerback room. The guy that studies the film on both sides is going to give us. So, okay. And then I would say, I got you. But I think there is a point there. Walker is athletically the one. Will he be able to? Now, if we were basing it on the spring game, which we don't do, but we did, watching him, everybody came away with, woo, Walker. Walker, Peyton or Leary, how do you say, ate his lunch? What do you say? He struggled. Now, let's see. Maybe it was a good thing. No, that was 3 months ago. A long time to get in there and turn things around and, get on back and be up on top of that depth chart. And then every practice, every rep, every technique that you're going through, where your hands at, where your feet are at, how you're positioning yourself, how you're making the plays, how they evaluate it when they go back and look at the tape each and every day. Maybe Walker right now is sitting there at number 1 with tomorrow being a big day in Michigan Fall Camp as they go out there and have a scrimmage, which, gives you some separation, which, however they're looking at all the reps and everything else, they take more away from when you get into a position of a scrimmage type situation. More, if you want to call them live bullets, the closest thing that you can get until 22 days. So that's it. Those are my 5 in terms of X factors for the Wolverines. Let's recap. Number 1 is that number 1 jersey, either Amarian Walker or Jaden McBurrows. Number 2, big Kenneth Grant, KG. Number 3, Khalil Mullings, the Hammer. I don't know what his nickname is. The touchdown maker. Short yardage, goal line back. We saw him in the biggest games last year for Michigan, getting the ball at the goal line. You need to get that ball into the end zone. Mullings, that's a big X factor. People don't talk about that at all, except here on Good Afternoon Michigan Football. Number 2, A.J. Barner. He's huge, and he does everything right, according to his offensive coordinator, Sharon Moore. And he doesn't tip what's Michigan's hand on what they're going to do. Oh, Barner, they're just going to run it. No, they'll throw as well with Barner in there. He's X factor number 4, being able to bring the size and also the hands and ability to catch the ball for the tight end position after what they lost last year. Now let's take a look at it. Barner, X factor number 4. And number 5, you want to make him number 1? I wouldn't put too much of an argument up. Roman Wilson. People talk about the Michigan offense, and they say, are they going to be able to make plays down the field with their average, a little bit above average wide receivers? Now, that doesn't sound very complimentary when you're talking about these guys. I think Wilson is better than that. I think he could have the kind of season. Hell, if he hauled in half of the passes that if McCarthy hit him, he overshot him like 5 or 6 times. If he caught half of those, we'd be talking about Roman Wilson as we'd be talking about him a lot more than he does get talked about. But I talk about him enough, I think, for everyone out there. That's why he is number 5 on the list. Roman Wilson. All right, that's it for me. I'm going to take some feedback here. 42 minutes into the show. I'm sorry I wasn't going through it the whole time, but let's do it. We start out with Gary. How did Delaware get to use the wing helmets? I don't know exactly how the Blue Hens were able to, when they went about. I don't know the history of Delaware football, but I'll throw a guess. They looked out there like we were doing with Owen a little bit earlier and saying, hey, who's got the best color scheme in the country? Michigan. Who's got the best helmets in the country? Michigan. Why don't we wear the wing helmet? Whoever there in Delaware came up with, hey, great idea. That would be my guess. And that's all it is a guess, Gary. They like the helmets and they said, let's do it. Richard's talking offensive line. He's going back to the interview that he watched with Lawan, talking with the Michigan O-line. They talked about their new cars. They seem very happy. Yeah. You get a fresh set of wheels, Richard, and you're the Michigan offensive line, and you got a bunch of studs. And they can surround JJ McCarthy with a force field. And then what those guys know, and this is the part where you get to, hey, we got to be able to throw the ball out more. I agree. More. They got to be able to do it. They got to be able to do everything. But offensive linemen, what they like is to dominate the opponent. And the way you dominate the opponent is by not pass blocking, which actually is a little bit passive. I know in football, if you kind of play along, you're snapping, you're taking a step back and you're trying to keep the would-be defender off your quarterback. So, you're retreating, trying to keep him off. When you are running the ball, you are firing off the line and you're going forward. There's nothing more aggressive than firing off the ball and then pounding the defense and wearing them down and taking over the game. So, yeah, these guys, they are giddy. And Michigan might have the best offensive line in the country, and they're deep. Offensive linemen, I don't like to, paint everybody with a broad brush, but normally offensive linemen, they like trucks, big trucks and everything. These guys probably all have nice trucks. But to stay with the car analogy, these guys are a bunch of Rolls Roycers and what they have going on up there. OT is wanting me to go to 5 days a week. That could happen. Why don't I get out there and find some people to back this show and let's go. Let's get that. Let's make that happen. I hear what you're saying. Those wanna, I don't get that one. What's up, Anwar? Anwar, I haven't heard from you in 20 years and now 2 times in 2 weeks. Hey, it's always good to reconnect. Anwar and I, we go back to early radio days, talking recruiting when there were only 900 numbers and you were calling up and you had, old Tom Lemming would be on there and saying, Justin Vargas is very interested, and you'd have to sit there, press 1, and you get your phone bill at the end of the month, and it'd be all these 900 charges, and be like, it's recruiting charges. And then if you did, like Anwar knows, get yourself one of there was no magazine, but, they'd have like little pamphlets, black and white, and we'd be looking through them. That was the days of recruiting. Let's see. Go blue, go blue. Nice handle, G. There was a great Uncle Lou show today. An idiot Buckeye fan lost his mind, argue about the OSU defense this year. That doesn't surprise me. I'm not familiar with Uncle Lou, so I don't really know what to say about that. He was a winged helmet guy, if you will. Google David Nelson. Oh, you got a little Michigan connection. I like that. Anwar wants to see both Donovan Edwards and Roman Wilson make big plays on special teams. I mentioned watching the 93 Rose Bowl, Michigan against Washington. Tyrone Wheatley, he was taking kicks back. Roman Wilson has been on kickoffs. Heck, Blake Corum has been on kickoffs. Could you see Roman Wilson, Cole Cabana, Donovan Edwards? I mean, punt return, kick returns. Yeah. You could do worse than having those guys back there. Why not? Richard saying JJ looks to have gotten bigger through the offseason, 15 pounds of muscle at least. Yeah. Anwar says, look out for Tulane. Their offense is pretty sick. They're a preseason top 25 team. I'll remember, Anwar, I'll have to check on that offense. Did I watch? Is that who played USC last year? Tulane? That was a pretty entertaining game. Yeah, they were. Now, hey, USC's defense is a bunch of. They were a bunch of chumps. Richard likes my call on Barner. OT. Not saying anything about my X factors, but he's got an X factor. It could be Kojo, route running, and the fact that he's a grown man, plus his touchdown celebration. You could go with Kojo as an X factor. There's a lot of guys that you could point to as X factors. I don't think you putting Kojo down there, people are like, oh, he's crazy. He's not crazy. Anwar's talking about the uniforms being X factors. Now, that's crazy. JP, he's going to the coaching staff as an X factor. Sharon Moore. Derek Moore, Josiah Stewart as X factors on the edge. No returnee recorded more than 3.5 sacks last year. And then JJ is an X factor. Needs to connect on more contested passes. Yeah, JJ needs to stay away from throwing it to the other team. JJ needs to protect the football on the, when he's running around as well, get out of bounds, protect himself. And then he needs to get the ball down the field and be able to put it on the receivers. You're talking about him being sharper on contested passes. Okay, I'll buy it. I know it's not exactly what I'm thinking, but I know what you're talking about, JP. And so I hear it. Vince, when will we know about the suspension being official? I thought I heard this goes into the season. Jim can end up missing games later in the year. Is this true? Well, we're dealing with the NCAA, so good luck on that. I feel like Josh Henschke from the Maize and Blue Review, the publisher, yesterday was, he has indicated all along he did not think that this suspension was going to be 4 games. It was never going to be 4 games. So it was going to get reduced, whether it was 3 or 2. And the latest on the suspension front, Vince, is that they might drop the most serious level 1 charge, which was, Harbaugh, giving him the runner, lying, I guess is what, not cooperating. Harbaugh said he didn't remember, misremembered, whatever it was. And so if they drop that charge, I don't know, maybe they just pay a fine, which I'll be fine with. 1 game, when you're thinking about 4, which, if it gets down to 1 and they drop the most serious charge and it's a 1-gamer, would I take that right now? Yes, I would. I would take a reduction of the suspension down to 1 game and a removal of the level 1 violation where, Harbaugh was, charged with being a cheater or a liar. I'm sorry, not cheater, a liar. And so are we good to go then? 1 game? We already were making too big of a deal about it. We knew that was going to happen. And, the damage has been done that way. Reputation, all the people like, oh, Michigan's not as squeaky clean as everybody. All of that, the horse is out of the barn when it comes down to that. But let's just have now, I would like the NCAA to just come back and say, look, of all the other garbage that's going on, these are small potatoes. We're just moving on. Go blue. They're not going to say that. So maybe a little bit of a fine. Hey, if it's pretty easy, like they just say, let's cough out some cash and then let's have Harbaugh September the 2nd down on the field. Let's go. But I'm going to guess it's going to be reduced to 1 game. We should know in 3 weeks' time, Vince. How about that? Mason and Grant are going to be great. Stewart as an X factor, Josiah Stewart. That's the 2nd time that has been announced, or I'm sorry, that has been put on the feedback. I don't know where my head is. Dave liked AC and Jim Harbaugh. 2 pretty good players. The original, looking at Derek Moore and McGregor. 2 X factors on the edge. If they can be consistent and UMM doesn't have to blitz, that's key. No lies detected there. Dave named his kid Carter. I love it, Dave. Dave, I was going to say I love you. Why not? I love you, Dave. Great stuff. I love it. And I love Carter. D Originals, thinking about Wallace being the starter. I could see that. Josh Wallace, number 12, a lot of experience, 34 starts, a 3-time captain at UMass. Sounds pretty good to me. The more guys we play, the fresher the team will be. There's look at, I'm with it. You guys are on. I feel like everybody is, As much as I've been watching these Michigan, the film that they put out, like whether it's on social Instagram or Twitter or whatever, they'll put these 30, 60-second films out of the team. I love them all. I watch them and I'm like, ooh, they look good. They look good. You guys look good. You guys are on top of it. A 3-time All-American in the era when we didn't throw the ball. Think about that. He was that good. I'm thinking about it. The original punish teams on offense when the other teams go 3 and out. I see it, the original. It's part of the reason I picked Michigan, the talent. But I think their ability to both run and throw the ball mixed in with the talent is why I think they're going to be the number 1 offense in college football this year. Amarian Walker was originally a wide receiver. That's true. Yeah, I think he saw a way onto the field, and they put him through some of those different drills, and whatever the reason, he also, he did talk about the idea of playing both ways, kind of thing. If you're a college football out there, college football fan or college football player, I should say, and you're thinking, man, I want to play both ways. I want to be in baseball terms, Shohei Ohtani of college football. But of course, we don't need to use a baseball reference. You need to just say, I want to be Charles Woodson. Well, you go to Michigan. And so there it is. Agent Zero showed that athleticism wins out. Agent Zero is Mike Sainristil, who spent a few years over on the offensive side of the ball, made the transition to defense, was a nickel slot, and was exceptional last year. And he's only going to get better. And Sainristil, who was in Indianapolis, a captain last year, a team spokesman. He's another guy. Like, I've never met Mike Sainristil, but he's another guy. If you look Michigan football up in the dictionary, there's a lot of players, and Blake Corum would be one. You'd put their picture next to it, or you look up Michigan man in the dictionary, more specific. There's Blake Corum. Right next to it is Mike Sainristil. There's a Michigan man. Everything that you said, boy, you like to. That's the kind of talk you like to hear. Boy, that guy, everyone talks about him. Old Sainristil. He's going to be a coach at Michigan one day. I know I said that yesterday, but I still feel that way. JP wants the most disciplined player out there at corner. Cujo with a big season. Who's Cujo? Oh, Kojo. I was like, Cujo. Great book by Stephen King back in the day. Good movie, too. Who's going to be the kick returner and punt returner? Well, we've gone over a few of those. So it was A.J. Henning and Ronnie Bell. I think you go to Tyler Morris. I think you go to Roman Wilson. I think you could go to Donovan Edwards. Donovan Edwards, kick returner. Cole Cabana, kick returner. Tyler Morris, punt returner. Roman Wilson, punt returner. One of the freshmen, Carmelo English. Samaj Morgan. These are the kind of guys that I'm thinking of. Maybe one of those corner freshmen, Cam Calhoun. And they got about 10 guys to pick from. Let's see. Is our K going to be good? The X factor is special teams. Is the kicking game going to be good? I don't know. Harbaugh said that Tommy Doman had the best leg since he's been at Michigan. That's encouraging. James Turner from Louisville is going to wear number 32 from Saline. He is deadly inside the 40, 97%. He is 87% inside the 50. It is pretty good. That it's putting you in, pretty good territory. He just 50 and out, 1 of 6 in his career. So I don't know, has he extended his range or is he just money inside the 50? One of those things. we'll keep an eye on. Here's the background on the Blue Hens. There he is, played at Michigan, coached at Delaware. You know what? Now that you put the facts out there, Jason, I think I knew that. Yeah, there's more of the X Factor. How about this? Old Dan Leach getting in on the feedback, which is very nice to see. My old radio partner. There's nobody that likes Michigan more than this guy right here. Nobody. And we're talking about going back to the Kelly Baraka days. Yeah. I remember Carr talking about Baraka in practice. Baraka, he gets in there and then he comes out the other side. Something like that. An X Factor, Peyton O'Leary. Reminds me a lot of Charlie Jones. The wideout from Purdue last year. If O'Leary's anything like Charlie Jones, then, this Michigan offense really is going to be the number one offense. So here it is. Like, people say, well, you're really talking up Michigan. Like, yeah, I mean, like, it's out there. Like, why not? Michigan were in the college football playoff last year and the year before. They got a returning quarterback. They are stacked on the offensive line. They've got two great running backs. I mean, like this offense, I think, should be the number one offense. This offense should score 44 points a game. And the defense, with the scheme that they have and what we have seen with Minter, I'm ready to say Minter's monsters from McDonald to Minter. I don't see much drop off in this defense. Let's go. They got high quality talent over there. They could be a top 5 defense. Number one offense, top 5 defense. Yeah. Bring on Georgia, bring on Alabama. They got to beat Ohio State first, and they got a tough game. The last 3 are going to be the most difficult. They got to go to Penn State. They got to go to Maryland. They got to beat Ohio State. They got those 2 road games coming up after this non-conference slate of Nebraska and Minnesota. One of those games probably be a 1-score game in the fourth quarter. So, that'll make you a little nervous, but I think they can win it. Do I think they're going to go undefeated? I do. I feel like that. I mean, who the only reason that you wouldn't feel like that is because it's so difficult to do. And you say, well, like they're going to do it again. They went 13-0. Yeah. Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are going to do it again. Fine Harbaugh, some cheeseburgers. Well, there's Michigan fans. And then there's the Uber Michigan cheeseburger fans that they don't want it. And that's fine. Like you're saying, nobody's a bigger Michigan fan than me. If you say that, then you like the cheeseburger line. So there's a lot of people. That's right. Find them a couple cheeseburgers. The feedback from JAM, formerly Andres, except, he's gone out and, he's played golf. Look at him. Look at the form here. If we look at it, I'd like to see a little bit closer on that. I like the, you have not shifted your body weight. I see the knees there and, just getting ready to come down, explode on the ball, nice and easy. Andre saying he'd be interested to see what exercise kickers do to increase their power. There's probably 100 things that those guys could do. But let's talk about some of them now. They could squat. The version of squatting. See those guys sitting down, leg press. How do you explode? There's probably a lot of little jumping, different things you do with those. Am I coming around some of those things? How many more? Probably name her like 10 more things. Who's in the gym a lot, working on their legs? I do air squats. Since June 1st, every other day And I have just started to include, a little bit of weight, but I'm not a kicker either. So I don't know. We get some new comments. All right, we'll take a few more here. Andres, if O'Leary is like Charlie Jones, you got to give him a nickname. Well, if it's O'Leary, it almost feels like you got to go and get some kind of Irish name, something clicking over there. I'm with you, Richard. Vince wanting to know what game I'm watching in the background. Let's take a look here. This is the Big Ten Championship game. I thought I'd mix it up today. Here they are down at the goal line. And what happens? We got a touchdown from the X Factor number 3. He probably, I don't know if he likes that nickname or not. X Factor number 3, touchdown. That is Khalil Mullings who went in. And now there, Harbaugh, he's excited about it. Let's see. Let's pound the ball right up the middle. Right behind, look at those offensive linemen. You get an extra one in there. Turn around and just give it to him right up the middle. Stop for a second and then, churns his legs. What's Khalil Mullings do to strengthen his legs? Because they're as big as tree trunks. Get him as a kicker out there. Bands and weights. I'm with you. JP saying the core strength is going to help you. The ability to decelerate with steps and accelerate with the hips. I don't know if that's true, but man, that sounds accurate. So does this. Andres is joining in now. Yeah, he likes that core rotation stuff. But with Michigan, they probably have some scientific machine like nowhere else. Yeah, here's the thing with Michigan. They have the best people on the job for it. Like they have Ben Herbert, who will have probably 100 different things at his disposal. It's a little bit like analytics when it comes down to it. Like we all love analytics about this and that, but you gotta pick the ones that you believe in and then go with it, and how they end up, doing that, and where they're going to go for strength and conditioning and what's the best way to go about it. It was kind of like using AI. AI can diagnose plays like that. And I don't know, it's been like 10, 15 years. I remember they put on those, the virtual reality, and the quarterback, was able to work through progressions, and it really helped, like making your decision. I would love to see now, I have not talked with anybody about this, but virtual reality now with AI clicking through the plays and what should be called and what's happening in the decision-making. I imagine that they've, got behind the wheel and took that for a spin a couple times. And if there's somebody at the forefront of all of that, I would imagine that Michigan has sat in that chair and tried some of that stuff out and has, AI in Michigan leading them to the championship. There it is. But, blocking it, you can have all the AI and core and all this other stuff. Give me great blocking and great tackling, and I'll see you in the national championship game this year for Michigan. Coming up next, I will see you on Monday. Like Gary says, have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you over on the Maize and Blue Review. Have a great day.